In today's video, I'd like to talk about a way that you can go about connecting to virtually anybody in the industry. As long as they've been involved in something where you can find an interview about them or they're kind of teaching or offering some sort of guidance, you can pretty much connect to anybody through email if you can find their email address. So here's the strategy. Let's say that you want to connect to a specific casting director, okay? So you've done your research, you've found that, casting director, I don't know, make up a name, John. So you want to reach out to John and get on his good side and kind of get on his short list of actors that he brings in when he's casting a project. So how do you go about doing that, especially if you don't know John? Well, there's two primary ways that I'm going to go through in this video. The first one is pretty straightforward, and that involves going to a class, whether it's online or in person. Ideally in person typically works better because you get FaceTime, they know who you are. You can also go to an online class with them, and what you're going to do is once you pay for this class, you're going to actually, ask some good questions during the class, and after the class is done, you're going to ask if it's okay to keep in touch with casting director John. And most of the time, the casting director is fine with that, okay? Now, let's say that you don't want to go to a class, or John is not doing any classes at the moment, or you can't afford to go to a class because sometimes they can cost $50, $100, even $200. So how do you meet John, or how do you connect with him without coming off as some weirdo actor who's emailing him out of the blue? Here's the strategy. And it's all based around finding something that they've done and appreciating them for it. Because typically, if you get an email out of the blue from someone and it's thanking you for something, you're usually going to respond to that because it makes you feel good. So how does it work? Well, this is what it looks like. Let's pretend that I'm an actor and I want to contact casting director John. I'm going to go onto Google and I'm going to search John's name, and if other articles, let's say his name is John Smith and there's a million people named John Smith, so I'll type in John Smith and then next to it I'll put the word casting director. And usually that's going to kind of narrow things down so that you can find only the John Smiths who are casting directors. And I'm going to start looking through Google for articles that he's been featured in, or videos he's been featured in, podcasts that he's been featured in, anywhere where you can find an interview or something that has got him in it. Now, of course, there's going to be some casting directors who have not been in anything, but most of them have been in at least some sort of class, or their name is mentioned somewhere, or whatever it is. And you're going to watch whatever you can find about this person. Like, go to a couple of these pages or watch a few of these videos or listen to some of these podcasts. And your goal is to take down notes and try to learn something from John. If you can find something that John has taught that you think is actually somewhat valuable to you, what you're going to do is you're going to draft a very simple email. You can go online, you can find John's email address, you can search, and also in the description below this video, I'm going to include a link where it kind of shows you a bunch of casting directors and their email addresses. You can also use a website called Casting About, and they often have contact info for the casting directors. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to send an email to John, and you're going to thank him for that specific piece of information that you learned from him. So what do I mean? I would send an email if I were an actor and say, "Hey, John, I happened to come across your interview with so-and-so on this page," and then I'll include the link, and I'll say, "It was really interesting, and I watched it, and I just wanted to thank you for talking about whatever it is." Let's say talking about how to do a much more natural slate and say, "Hey, my name is blank." You can make something up if you want. Ideally, you don't, and you actually learn something. But, if you have to, you can make something up. So you would say like, honestly, I have always done my slate by being very formal, and it could have come across as stiff. But your interview kind of gave me the idea of doing it more naturally. And I just wanted to thank you for that. I'm actually going to try that the next time I go in for an audition, and I'll let you know how it goes. So you send this email to John, and chances are he's not going to respond to it because he's busy, and he'll notice it though. He will probably notice it, and make sure that your email signature is there. Ideally, if you can include a headshot in your email signature, that's best. You can actually go online and look up pretty easily how to create an HTML email signature, which means that you can have a little headshot or image in there and it looks really professional. Do not in this email include your headshot and resume and reel, because you're trying to come off as purely appreciative, and you don't want to come off right now as like needy or like I want something from you. So you're not going to include your headshot or any of that stuff. You're just going to thank them and have your email signature, which in there, you could have your website and contact info and a mini tiny headshot, right? And again, John is going to see this email from you, and he'll just be like, okay, cool, whatever, that sounds good. And you've deliberately mentioned that you will follow up and let him know how it goes in a couple of weeks. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go and take his advice. You're going to actually go into an audition or try submitting a self-tape and do your slate more naturally. And ideally, hopefully, you'll get some sort of result that you can report back on. And even if you don't get a specific result, you can still report back on how the process was and why it was beneficial to you. So 2 weeks later or so, maybe 1 week if you want, you're going to reach out to John again and send him a follow-up email that says, hey, John, just wanted to follow up on my last email to you. I know you're super busy, so I'll make this short. Again, wanted to thank you for that idea on saying my slate much more naturally and using a hello or hey type of greeting at the beginning. It was very effective, and I felt much more comfortable when I did my slate, and it actually made my audition, I think, come out a little bit better. So thank you for that, and I'll keep in touch. Right? You send something very simple and short like that to the casting director. And actually, at this point, usually, as long as, again, your email signature has your headshot in there, they'll remember it. Like, you're much more likely to be remembered if you have a professional photo in your email signature. So chances are he's probably going to remember your first email, and he might actually write back to you and say, sounds awesome, or great work, or glad I could be of service. Right? Some sort of simple email he might send back to you. And if you get a response, that's awesome. Now, even if you don't get a response, 4 to 6 weeks later, you're going to follow up with a third email. And in this email is where you're going to say, ideally, a very specific result that you've actually achieved. Okay? So you want to try to make it your effort to either book something or get an audition or whatever over the course of that time, and then send him one final email thanking him and also including at that point your headshot and resume. So you're going to say, hey, just wanted to reach out one last time and let you know I actually got called in for an audition and I used that slate. And for the first time, a casting director really complimented me and said that I did a really great job and they liked the way that I introduced myself. So thank you for your tip. By the way, I am looking to be in these types of projects, or this is my brand and these are the types of characters that I typically do. I know that you cast a lot of these kinds of projects. I've attached my headshot and my resume for your consideration. Hope to keep in touch. Now you're set. Even if they haven't responded back to any of these emails that you've sent, you've at least established yourself. And you can actually use Gmail offers it. There's other services as well that will allow you to what's called track open rates of emails, and you can see whether John is actually opening your email or not. And most likely he is. And if he's opening your email, you know that he, at this point, definitely knows who you are as long as your email signature has an HTML thing with your headshot. So now you're kind of at liberty to send follow-up emails to him. You can, reach out and connect. I have a whole other video where I go into depth on how to network and constantly follow up with casting directors without coming across as needy. You can offer tickets to shows. You can connect them with other people in the industry. There's a number of different things that you can actually do to stay in touch with people without coming off as, a weirdo and being bothersome. But just make sure at this point that you follow up once every 6 to 8 weeks. And what's going to happen is you're definitely going to see, with most people, they will respond to you at some point and say, thanks, got your headshot on file, blah, blah, blah. And even if they have your headshot on file, you should still stay in touch with them at least every 2 months. And, you keep following up with these people. If you do this process with a series of a bunch of different casting directors, what's going to happen is these people, they'll appreciate you for recognizing what they've taught you. They'll appreciate the fact that you've actually applied what you've learned from them. And they'll be more likely to want to bring you in because they're going to see you as someone who actually, puts in effort and actually appreciates what they're doing. They're going to like you. And chances are they're going to want to bring you in at some point. You can continue following up with these people for about 6 months. If you have not heard a single response from the casting director after 6 months of this, sending them an email once every 6 to 8 weeks, then you can kind of cut them off and move on. Chances are they don't care. But most people who you do this with, you probably will receive some sort of positive response within a short period of time. It's all about building rapport and connecting with people in a way that makes them appreciate it, providing them value before you expect value back. And the best way to provide someone who's trying to help you value is by actually emailing them and saying, hey, thank you. Because even for me, I put out these videos, I put out this content. Occasionally actors email me thanking me for it, and it makes me feel really good. I have a cool little testimonial or whatever that I could post on my website and use how I want. And typically the actor, when they respond to me with positive messages like that, I'm much more likely to want to help them down the line if they need something. Like sometimes I've had someone who, they emailed me a few times, we went back and forth, and they said hey, listen, I'm really dealing with something. I was wondering, I know that you're super busy, but I was wondering if you'd be open to a quick 5 or 10 minute phone call. And I actually helped them out. I chatted, we worked through the solution, and they walked away with a really good idea of how to handle it, and it wound up working. So do that. Reach out and thank people and show them that what they're doing actually makes a difference in someone's life. It'll make them feel really good and it'll help you connect with them.